Hey, and welcome back to the Underdog Protagonist, the podcast which is there for the people who are in the hustle period of their lives. Today I'm joined by someone whose story pulled me in instantly. Mark Steven Porro is a designer, director, and now an award-winning author of the book that is partly a love letter, part comedy, and all heart. It's called The Cup of Tea on the Commode, which tells about a story when Mark received a phone call which completely changed his life. His mother was on her deathbed. She did not die, she lived, but Mark, he stepped into one of the hardest but beautiful roles anyone can take over. It's a caregiver. Today we talk about the unexpected journey, the trust, the tension, the tea, and what it means to love someone enough to hold them through the end. This one's deeply real, so let's get into it. Hi Mark, welcome to the show.
Hi, it's glad to be. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, likewise.
So where are you recording from? Because I am in the south of France.
I'm in India.
Okay, so we're quite a distance,
Yeah.
but yeah, isn't technology amazing? I think this is so cool.
Yeah. I'm in south of India right now. Originally from the east, but I've shifted to the south. I think it's been 4 years since I shifted, but yeah, it's going well.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. Mark, I'm very fascinated by the story, by the book, and by your journey so far, and what you had to go through. I know it's a surprise for you. It was a surprise for you back then, and you found a way to cope up with your ailment, and in a way, the situation that you faced at the moment is not something that everyone gets to face in everyday basis. I mean, obviously, it's new for you and it's new for everyone who might be hearing for the first time, right? So I just want to dig a little bit deeper on the whole journey, how it started, and how the call that you had when you were enjoying your bachelor life changed everything. I will get to the book you have written. I'm looking forward to talking about that a bit more, but I just want to give the listeners context and start from the beginning.
Okay. Like you said, I was enjoying my carefree bachelor life in Los Angeles. I was out there at that point, probably about 25 years. I was acting. I also started up a bunch of companies. I said I started 5 nonprofits, but none of them were intended to be nonprofits. But I didn't take those, let's say, failures as such. I took what experience I learned from them, and then tried to make the next one more successful. But the last one that I had was a snack food company that my brother and I started to honor my father, and a snack invention that he came up with when we were kids, actually in 1963. And so that was my primary thing. My acting career was kind of slowing down because it's a young business, and unless you're a big star, things really start slowing down. So that was not a main focus for me anymore. And I had no children. I had never married. And so in 2011 is when this happened. So 9 days after my mother's 89th birthday, I get a call from my oldest brother who lived close to her, and she was living in the house we all grew up in New Jersey. And we had, she could still walk and pretty much take care of herself, but we needed someone in the house to kind of keep her company and do food shopping and manage household duties and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
And then if she needed help, which I guess at this time she kind of did, getting dressed in the morning and getting ready for bed at night, we had someone to go in and give her like sponge baths and things like that. But this one particular day, she was visiting a senior center, which she went to several times a week to keep active. And they called my brother and said, come get your mother. She just shut down. Mm-hmm. She's non-responsive. Nothing happened. There was no accident or anything. She just shut the body down. And so Michael went and picked her up and brought her home, put her to bed, and called her doctor. And the doctor said she's going without even looking at her. This is the American medical system, I guess now. So they said, call hospice. We're going to cut off all meds and all food and let her transition. And so she had 6 kids, and all of us rushed home, and we were on death watch. We had a Catholic priest come in and deliver the last rites, and hospice was there by the time I got there. I got there the next morning, and again, no food, no meds, a little moisture on her lips to keep her as comfortable as possible, but she didn't talk. She barely opened her eyes. She did respond a little bit to touch, which was comforting, and she didn't look like she was suffering at all. And so I called it a semi-comatose state. I'm not sure if that medically is correct or not, but so my younger sister and I, we didn't know how long Mom was going to be with us. So we hung out with hospice, and we wanted to learn as much as we could to take care of Mom as long as we could, as forever long she wanted to be here. And so we learned how to change the diapers and the sponge bathing and attend to some medical needs. And changing the bedding with a helpless patient in bed was a little tricky. And so that was great. And after a few weeks, Mom snapped out of it. And part of it was we had one of the hospice nurses, since she was on duty, at least in New Jersey, once you call hospice, they're on duty for 6 months. But usually, the patients call for hospice, they don't last that long. Mm-hmm. And so the end's not a good one. But she was hanging in there. And each of the hospice nurses, we found out, have their own way to prescribe their own treatment and stuff. So a couple of them broke the rules. And so my sister and I would meet them at the front door with the directive from their supervisor and say, listen, no meds, no food, and don't tempt her. And this one nurse, this is a few weeks in, looks at it and says, great. And then she walks into my mother and sees her and says, Mrs. Porro, would you like something to eat? And my mother's eyes popped open for the first time in weeks, like a dinner bell rang. And my little sister and I wanted to jump over the bed and strangle this woman because she broke the rules. And then she accused us of trying to starve our mother to death, which we were not. But after I wrote the book and I've been talking to a lot of people about this situation of caregiving and stuff like that, it does happen. Apparently, if they have some kids who don't like their parents all that much, they try to expedite the death, I guess. Anyway, so she went and called her supervisor, and the supervisor said, leave, you broke the rules. But now I'm thinking maybe they got it wrong, mm-hmm. and the original assessment is not right. So I went in and I asked my mom if she wanted something to eat. And she looks at me and speaks the first words, what do you got? First words in weeks. And I said, well, anything you want. And she says, well, how about some pumpkin pie? Well, pumpkin pie season is in the fall in the United States. Okay. So there's not a lot of pumpkin pies throughout the year. But my brother, who lived close, I asked him if he wanted to go out and take on this challenge. So he went out, and within a half hour, he came back with 2 fresh pumpkin pies. Oh. And we started feeding that to Mom. 1 spoonful didn't go well because it was the first food in weeks, so she spit that out. The second spoonful went down, and she ended up downing half the pie, and she was back. Mm-hmm. It might have been just the sugar rush or whatever, but the color came back in her cheeks. She was wide awake and talking, and it was fabulous. So, so that was, I'm not going to say a miracle, but pumpkin pie was certainly something special there. That was pretty cool. So she's now awake, and my sister and I, again, kept taking care of her to give hospice a bit of a break. And I started looking around at the house that we grew up in. It was no longer this loving, welcoming home. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the family heirlooms and items and things that were all around the house were no longer around the house. They were kind of sequestered in Mom's room. And these people who were overseeing household duties kind of made it their home. And that was kind of a shame. So once I started really taking in the environment and seeing mom's condition, that's when I started thinking about I've got to really step up and do something because my mom deserved better.
Absolutely.
And so that got the ball rolling.
I mean, the situation was kind of hectic, and I can't imagine myself, dealing with anything like that. But I believe, on a hindsight, breaking the rule was a good thing. Don't you think?
Yeah. Yeah, oh, absolutely, and I give her some credit in the book because I write about it. So I said this rebel nurse, again, they are on the front lines, and they really know their pretty much the patients and the signs. And another nurse that came in later, because again, mom was now eating, but she was still bedridden. So another one of these rebel nurses, I call them, went in and told my mother, "You're getting up and you're eating your lunch in the kitchen like normal people." And we were away at the time. And so we came back and mom's sitting in a wheelchair at the kitchen table. I don't know where she got the wheelchair. All of a sudden there's a wheelchair and mom's eating and she's feeding herself. And it was amazing. And so this nurse, before I was angry at first, but then she said, "Listen, I took one look at your mother and said, this woman is not ready to die. So get up and eat your food like a normal person." So it's fabulous.
Yeah.
So they know better. They see
Absolutely.
the patient. They go, this is good.
Yeah.
Good practical. I call it good common sense.
Yeah. You just mentioned that you were quite angry on the nurse back then. But I am curious about what other emotions, stirred up inside you at the moment.
Well, I would say for me, because I lived the furthest away, my oldest sister also lived in California. And I kept in touch and visited in New Jersey a couple times a year normally. And then my mom and dad sometimes would visit me in California. But the last few years, she suffered from some depression, and she hid it well most of my life. But the last few years, she was really kind of a grumpy, unpleasant person to be around a lot of the time. So I stayed away.
Okay.
I called her up on the phone and things like that. So it was several months. So I certainly felt guilty because staying away from your mom, and now that you may not have her for much longer, made me feel terrible. So I think that was also one of the reasons that I wanted to take over, because of guilt. So guilt might have been a bad catalyst, but it was one that was certainly powerful.
Yeah. I want to transition towards the book that you have written. It's an award-winning book, I believe, A Cup of Tea on the Commode. And starting with this book, I just want to know that when was this book being written? Like when you heard the news, before you heard the news, after a year, after a month? What is the timeline?
Well, I was a writer in Hollywood. Not let's say a paid writer on a show or anything, but I wrote screenplays and I wrote jokes. I did stand up for a while. But as an actor, you're constantly, let's say, rewriting and stuff like that. So writing was like second nature. And 14 years earlier, my dad passed, but I only had 8 days with him. But I took a lot of notes because I was privy to some moments and some conversations that my siblings would have missed out on if I didn't record those. And so those will eventually go into a book. Some of those did go into my mom's book. So with my mom, this was a 3.5-year journey. And again, I was privy to some conversations, and she had some very interesting visions early on, and just some really lovely moments that I thought it would be a shame if they didn't know about them or if they were forgotten. So I just started recording things. I shot a lot of video and a lot of photographs, and I wasn't sure it was going to be a book. I just normally, because of my screenwriting experience, I would think of, how can I make a movie out of this? So I have like the beginning and the end of the movie always in my head, trying to figure things out. What goes in between is the challenging parts. But while I was doing this, because I learned some really good tips and tricks from hospice, I had another friend going through something similar with her folks. And so I shared some of my experience with her, and she seemed to get some benefit out of it. So I thought maybe a book is going to be the best thing because I have more control over how I tell that story. And it would be easier to get that thing out because movies take forever and TV shows and all that kind of stuff. So I thought that was going to be the best thing. So put that idea in my head. But I'd never written a book before. I think I'm a pretty good writer in the other genres and screenwriting and certainly with the jokes and stuff. But so I started studying that genre. And I had a memoir teacher and I took courses, and then I read a lot of memoir, and then I needed some emotional distance because I'm very emotional, especially when it comes to family. So I couldn't write it right away. My mom, I don't want to ruin the end of the book, but my mom passed, and I moved a couple of years later to France, and this is the room where I wrote the book. I had a good enough, I guess, distance. Literal distance, but also emotional distance. And whenever I came up with ideas, I would jot down notes. So I had a ton of notes and a ton of ideas. And then when you start writing, at least with me, it just opened up all these doors, which were fabulous. And memories. I have memories back when I was 2 years old. And a couple of them made it into the book because they were important moments between me and my mom or me and my dad and stuff like that. And so that's what I love about writing, because you just start going down this one path and all these other paths start opening up and doors open up and memories start popping out. So it's very exciting. It's really time consuming and sometimes very emotional. There are a lot of times where, I would just start breaking down while I'm writing and thanking God I was alone because it was pretty embarrassing.
I have been privileged to, read a few pages from the book. Thanks for sending in the copy, by the way. But would you mind reading a short excerpt from the first chapter of the book right now on the show?
But there's a lot of laughs. There's not a lot of laughs in this part, but there's a lot of laughs. So you want me to read the whole chapter or just
one short paragraph from the chapter is fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this obviously is chapter 1, The Call.
Okay.
My mother's first attempt at dying, the first I knew of anyway, occurred February 5th, 2011, 9 days after her 89th birthday. I was working at my sister's design firm in East Grand Rapids, Michigan, making extra cash to keep my struggling Los Angeles snack food business afloat. My carefree bachelor life made traveling back and forth between the Pacific and Lake Michigan easy, even for weeks at a time. I didn't have any children, few responsibilities outside of work, but everything changed when I received the call. Seniors Connections said Mom just shut down. They didn't know what to do and told me to come get her, my brother Michael said. I held my breath. Senior Connections was the activity center where my mother spent her workdays. Michael's voice trembled as he continued. I carried her limp body into the house and just put her to bed. Doctor cut off all meds, food, and medications, and drink. Hospice is on the way. My pulse spiked. Hospice comes only when the end is inevitable. I had gone through this scenario 14 years earlier with my father. 2 days later, he died.
I think
that enough to wet your whistle?
Yeah, I mean,
We're good.
I'm just losing words right now because I know it's very deeply connected to you because it's your life's biography in a way. But it's also connecting because I'm also a son. I also have parents and the responsibilities I have for them. And when you are listening to someone's story who has been through adversities, just can't help but imagine what if I have to go through that one day. And just hits you in a way that leaves you speechless. And that's what I'm feeling right now.
Yeah. Well, I would have to tell people because there are, it's funny because I have a lot of friends, certainly Hollywood friends, and friends from my hometown that know about this book. And some have not touched it. And I think there's fear involved because they don't, it's like once you see something, you can't unsee it. And I know some friends are dealing with their mothers right now who are well into their 90s, and they could really find some comfort, I think, in this book.
Yeah.
But they've avoided it, and everybody has their reasons, and you can't push it. But I've had some really lovely personal messages and notes, and certainly the reviews have been lovely from people who have either gone through it or want some help because they know they're going to have to go through it at some point.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, at least in America, it's easier just to put your parent in a nursing home or assisted living and not worry about it, other than the financial, I guess, responsibility. But it wasn't that long ago where 3 generations were normal to be in the house, and we respected our elders, and we learned a lot. I only had one grandparent. My mother's parents died before she was married, and my grandfather died when I was about 1 year old. So I never knew him personally, but my grandma was great. It was great to have, we went to grandma's house and she cooked for us and we played games and you learned things. And it's a shame. So I'm hoping through this book and through some of the happier times that I had, that will inspire people to take this on, because you have one mom and one dad.
Yeah.
And it's the right thing to do. And fortunately for me, my parents were pretty funny, and they passed that on to their kids. And so humor plays a big part in this. And one of my goals was to make my mom laugh at least once a day. And she ended up making me laugh quite a bit because she was just a kooky lady. There was one day where it was nice because sometimes you don't get a lot of appreciation for this. And I try not to take that personally. It's just a fact that happens. But one day she looked at me, she goes, "Why do you treat me so good?" I said, "Because you're my mother and you deserve to be treated like a queen." And she burps. I said, "But queens don't do that." She goes, "How do you know?" So these little practical things, oh, that's true. Of course, they do all the things that everybody else does. So she was good, but she could be a tough cookie. She was a very stubborn, very independent lady, and my dad was very stubborn and pretty independent, and so they had some rocky times in the marriage. But all those things played a part in me, I guess, kind of taking this on, because I felt like I was kind of a protector for my mom when there was arguments between my parents, or if arguments, let's say, between one of my siblings and my mother, I would kind of step in. And so those things were things kind of ingrained in me during my upbringing. So for me to take this on, it was not a hard decision. Working out the logistics of getting back and forth, because I still wanted to keep the snack food business alive. It took a little work, but the decision was very easy.
I believe there's love and also a sense of responsibility as a son, which made you, reverse your role, and you as a son became a parent, and you had to tell your mother that you listen to me, you have to obey me now. Like, I remember that when you wrote about that part, okay?
Yeah.
And in a way, I can also...
That she didn't like so much.
Yeah. And before we move into, the role reversal part, I just wanted to give context about a bit of my life story as well. I have lost both my grandparents as of now. But while we had the chance to, make things right, and, in their last days, we wanted to, extend their lifespan a bit more, like as much as we can. So my grandmother was living in the village, and she did not have a lot of access to, none of the medical equipments, none of the facilities were there. So what my father used to do was he used to send in all this, medicines, ointments, tissue, gloves, and other requirements which you need to nurse someone at your home, right? So he used to make trips on a weekly basis. It's like a round trip of probably 300 to 350 kilometers per week, and he delivered those things personally and made sure that those things are being used properly for the treatment. But the thing that took us by surprise was that the family, like my father's elder brother, was taking care of grandmother back then. But that side of the family was not very keen, or I don't know, maybe not interested to take care of her in a way, and they did not do their jobs quite responsibly. So my grandmother ended up passing, a very lethal way. If I am allowed to be explicit about it, I have to, blur this out in the podcast. But anyways, part of her organs fell out when she died. So it was that harsh as a treatment. They did not do their jobs nicely, and partly the reason why our families were not the same after that incident. So when my grandfather had similar symptoms, so he had some heart issues, I believe, and his heart was getting weak. His immunity was strong, but mainly to his heart, he was having these strokes, and paralysis came into the life, and a lot of issues started happening there. So he was going into cardiac arrest, and we came to know about that quite early on. So what my father did was that he did not take any chances right now. He did not, make other people, cope with the fact that, okay, you have to take care of him as well, because they were obviously not interested in that. They were like, as soon as these old guys pass out, we can live our lives quite maybe happily now. I don't know what's the sense behind all those things. But anyways, my father did not take any risks and chances, so he convinced grandfather to come with him back to the town. So he brought him with him, and since that day we started taking care of our grandfather. But I have huge respect for you, because you were able to take care of your mother as a son. You were the caretaker there, but we quickly realized that we are not suitable for this job. We are not able to handle all those necessities, and we are not able to provide what the patient needs at that point. We tried to do as much as we could. We tried to handle the diet, the environment, and the timings, medicines, everything. We did all this scans, and he was in the way to bypass surgery of some sort, because his arteries were being blocked by something, I don't know. So there were two solutions for it. I think three. Either you let him die as soon, because obviously you can't let someone suffer for long, or you can proceed into those pills treatments and make the blood thinner, so that even though there's some blockages in the arteries, thinner blood can pass from those tiny, circumference or tiny holes or whatever. So that was a second option, or the third option was a surgery. So surgery was giving us good chances that, okay, he will, that the surgery will help recover the issues, and the problems won't persist anymore, because obviously he'll do the bypass surgery. But the catch was that he might not survive throughout the surgery, because he is now 86 or probably 89 years old at that point, and the toll on his body might eat him alive, and he might not survive through that. So the best sensible way for us at that point was to go ahead with the pills to thin the blood, so that it passes through the arteries, right? So we did that along with multiple nutrition plans and whatnot. But we were able to extend that for probably 3 to 5 years or so. But after that, we had to again rush back to the hospital, because he had a stroke now. And at this point, we were like completely blank on what we need to do. And that is when we made a decision that we need a full-time caretaker at our home, who comes in and takes care of grandfather. Because at that point, it's not only giving meds, it's not only taking care of his exercises, it's not only the nutritional plan, it's everything. Helping him take a bath, helping him go to the bathroom, helping him pass stool, because oftentimes what he used to do, he used to pass stool and urine in the bed itself. So quite early on, we had to put cathedral on, and he was not able to move at all, Because as you know, if stroke comes in, half of the body is paralyzed and you can't speak or walk or do anything, right? So we did a lot of things to help him get through the problem, and fortunately, we are able to extend his lifespan to probably 96 years by then. And when he was closing to 97 years, we had a life-changing, movement at that point, and when he had a major stroke, which we were quite afraid of at that point. So it was, I think, from 12 to 2 a.m. at night, I think, when that happened. I was the one who noticed when that was happening, because me and my grandfather used to sleep in the same room, and I was kind of keeping an eye on his conditions back then. So we had a great connection together, and all of the good memories with the grandparents is what I have with him. And I was the one. We had 3 siblings, and I'm the middle child. And he somehow loved the middle child more than the other 2. He did not admit in front of those 2, but we know that he did. So we had a special connection. So that's why I feel very deeply connected with the things that happened. But we rushed to the hospital, and the doctor was like, I don't think he'll make it. So we wanted to take a chance, obviously, because we don't want to lose a life, and it doesn't matter if he has more years left or not. We just want to try whatever is possible so that the lifespan, increases, and we get to have him home back soon. So we decided to put him on a ventilator so that he breathes more. His heart was not getting enough oxygen. It was not able to pump blood, and which is what it was feeling, right? So at that point, the doctor was like, either he'll die in 2 days, or max we can give us 12 days. Because of the ventilator, it's helping him keep alive. So whatever you have, you can tell your final words, you can meet him, whatever you can do, just do it. And at that point, we are like, we are short on cash. Obviously, we can't have him longer, because at that point, health insurance does not work. The age is a factor there. And whatever savings my father had, he had put everything on the line. And at that point, I don't think we had any money left to spare. So again, we had to make another decision to sell the lands that we have, so that whatever money comes in can be put into the treatment. So whatever the price of the land was at that point was not what we got in return, but as we wanted the money quite fast, we had to make that sacrifice that, okay, whatever you can give me, just give me, because I need the money. So again, that money came in, we put in the treatment, but still we were able to extend his lifespan for probably 4 more days. And in a way, I'm thankful for, seeing him and in his last moments, but I still feel the guilt very deeply that I was not able to speak anything. I was not able to express anything, even though he was on his deathbed. I knew I had my last chance to speak with him at that point. I could have spoken. I could have spoken about my achievements. I could have spoken about how things were going in my life. I could have spoken about, how we can manage even if he's not there, just to give him a little bit peace in his mind. But seeing the condition he was lying in the bed, I could not open my mouth even though I wanted to. And after I left the room, I think probably max to max 10 to 15 minutes later, he passed away. And that is what struck very deeply, very hard with me, that even though I had a chance, God has given me a final chance to, speak my heart out, but I lost it. So yeah, that is what I wanted to have the listeners context about, that I feel I can resonate with the story on a much deeper level, even though you had lost a parent, I have lost grandparents, but the connection is something, the love is something that can be matched on a similar level. Mm-hmm. So I want to talk about this reversal of roles. You mentioned that your mother was quite tippy and getting angry on a lot of things when you're taking care of her. And it's quite difficult to manage that dynamics. But the shift like you had from a son to a caregiver was so strong in your mind that you're able to I think you had made up your mind that whatever you throw at me, I'll just handle it, whatever that might be. So I just want to know, what did she resist the most, and how you handled this change Because certainly I was not able to. So I'm curious about you.
Well, I guess the first thing and what helped again was working with hospice in the beginning because that was the first time I see my mother naked.
Mhm.
You know, and she's 89 years old, so you see what the years have done to her and what gravity has done. Gravity is very cruel, and so that's kind of a shock. But my I was a designer throughout my life. I have my industrial design degree from Ohio State, and that played a role. My acting experience played a role too. So I had, let's say, empathy for what my mother was going through, and as a designer, you have to incorporate empathy because you have to take into account the end user, whether it's a brochure, a logo, or a product, how that end user is going to react to it and interact with it. And you have to put yourself kind of in their shoes. And so I was able to do that with my mom from that training. But also as an actor, you're dealing with empathy. And then if I was going to take this job on, I had to assume that role. So that helped because I said, okay, this is a little weird, but I've got a job to do. So I've got to get over it and on with it because there's work to do. And my mother was the top priority. So my little maybe hesitation in the beginning and stuff like that had to go over the out the door. And if I was nervous or uneasy with anything, I kept it out of the room. I didn't want my mom to feel guilty or uncomfortable with her son taking this on. So I had to look like I was comfortable and this is cool and there's no, let's say, bridge we would not cross because there were a lot of things and a lot of it's in the book. Is I wanted it to be a very honest book and some of it's a little graphic but it was okay. And she was great because she trusted me. And that was the main thing, because I said, I'll keep you safe and happy for the rest of your life. And she gave me permission to take that on. So that helped, I think, both of us. And my siblings were great because sometimes there's sibling rivalry and all that kind of stuff, but they all yielded and they said, okay, this guy's going to do it. And they saw how well my mom was treated and how happy she was. And that helped them feel a little more comfortable. And so I was very fortunate that way because I've heard horror stories the other way. And there were times, again, a first-time parent, so it wasn't perfect. There were a lot of episodes where I'm not really proud of my reaction. And I think she felt guilty at times. If can I tell that one dinner story?
Sure.
Because this was not my proudest parent moment. But this is probably several months in, maybe even a year or so in. I did all the cooking and cleaning and distribution of the medications, and I went shopping and bought a new wardrobe for her. I renovated her house, but just the day-to-day stuff weighs on you, not only physically but emotionally and mentally. So I made her a lovely dinner. I was a pretty good cook. And always wanted to make healthy dinners for her and all her meals, actually. So I made this wonderful dinner that she normally liked, and she went into one of these depression moods and just wouldn't respond. She wouldn't eat, and she's sitting at the kitchen table, and she wouldn't tell me why. And so I got a little angry. I said, "Listen, I do all this stuff for you, and I'm here not out of duty, but I'm here out of love. But you got to show some appreciation. I need you to eat your meal so you stay strong and healthy." And she wouldn't budge. So I flicked off the lights in the kitchen, so she's sitting in the dark. And I went down the basement to take my anger out on I guess an innocent load of laundry. So I'm banging around with the putting a load in because you got to do a lot of laundry.
Yeah.
And I calmed down for a bit, and I came back up into the kitchen, and I turned the light on, and my mother was sitting at the table still in her wheelchair. Her hands are folded in her lap, and her utensils are on the plate. She ate her entire meal in the dark because I think she felt bad. And then of course she out guilt tripped me because I felt horrible. That's not easy for anybody to do in the dark, but at this age, anyway, it was beautiful. And I didn't know what to say. I just leaned in and said, thank you, and gave her a kiss. And that was it. And so she was very good at guilt tripping. And we have a saying in America, at least, where the parents would often say right before a spanking, this will hurt me more than it hurts you.
Yeah.
And it was never true, but maybe, emotionally they felt it. But that night, what I did actually did hurt me more than it hurt my mom. So that was a really good parenting lesson. So it was an important moment for both of us. And we never had a moment like that again. That was a pretty good learning experience for Mark.
I think she handled the situation quite nicely. I mean, she did the thing that you asked for, but she also ended up guilt tripping you in a way. And I think she had a laugh out of it inside her mind.
She may have, yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. There was another time where, again, several months into this, I'm the only one doing all this stuff 24/7. So I'm wiping her butt several times a day. And out of the 6 kids, I'm the only one whose name she couldn't remember. And I wasn't sure if she was kidding the first time she hit me with that. I went in the morning and I gave her, she usually started off the morning with a juice. So I gave her morning juice, and she looks at me and she says, now, what is it I call you? And again, she had a wicked sense of humor. So I said, you're kidding, right? And she said, no. I said, name your children. Laurel, Michael, Carol, David, DC. And stumped, had no idea. I said, Mark. She goes, oh, Mark. Mark with a K? I said, yes, Mark with a K. You named me. She goes, oh, okay. I said, I'm your favorite son. And she said, I don't have favorites. And I said, well, you have a favorite to forget. So I have a chapter in the book, Does Wiping a Loved One's Butt Cause Amnesia? And I think I have evidence that, in fact, it does.
There's this also, I don't know, maybe a chapter I'm not remembering quite well, but you have written, Do You Trust Me? And I think that's such a profound line, and it has so many levels of meaning inside it. When you think about a perspective of a son, perspective of a mother, perspective of listeners, I know there can be a lot of meanings that can be derived out of that line. But what did this trust, look like in action and during that time when things were happening?
Well, at that point, at least, when I took this on, her life is literally in my hands, and it's not only that I have her trust, I have to have the trust of my 5 siblings. Because if anything happened, I'd have to make some, whatever. There was a time where she almost did, she passed out, and I thought, oh my God, this is it. And that's my fault. Again, it's another learning experience. So while I was there, I not only wanted to return dignity to her, I wanted to return dignity to her home. The house that we grew up in. So she was like a baby. She slept many hours a day. So I had a lot of experience in design and reconstruction and stuff like that. So I renovated the entire house, floor by floor. And when I finished the upstairs bathroom, I put a large bathtub in addition to a shower. And I asked my mom if she'd like to christen the new bathtub with the bubble bath. Now at this point, again, we don't think about these little things, but I don't know when the last time she had a bath or even a shower. They were all sponge bathing now for years. So a nice bubble bath was a nice treat. So I give her, I get the water at a nice temperature. She gets in there. I take a picture of her with the bubbles covering up any particular parts. And she's just grinning from ear to ear, having the best time. And that was a lovely photo, which almost ended up being her last photo. So we're having a good time, and all of a sudden she passes out.
Hmm.
And again, with her sense of humor, I didn't know if she was kidding or not. So I've got his almost dead body in the bathtub. I said, Mom, what are you doing? And I'm tapping her face and no response. So I pull her out of the tub, I dry her off, and still she's gone. She's breathing, but I'm like, how am I going to explain this to my siblings?
Hmm.
So I'm thinking, oh, great. I want to do a good thing, give Mom a bubble bath, and I kill her. So I bring her down to her, put her in bed, and I call up a nurse, and they said she fainted because you left her in the hot water too long.
Oh.
So she was enjoying herself, but her blood pressure was lowered, and she fainted.
Okay.
So I stayed with her until she woke up. She woke up about a half hour later, and she didn't remember fainting, but she remembered the new bathtub, and she loved it. So for me, it was a win-win.
Hmm.
And I didn't have to tell my siblings, oh, by the way.
I believe as humor was there throughout your life, like playing a major role, having all these laughs. But there must be situations where this humor has taught a lot of lessons to you or your siblings. So can we touch a bit on that?
Well, both folks, they were both funny, and sometimes you could call it, I guess, dark humor and stuff like that. Out of the darkest moments, you could find a laugh, or at least I certainly can. There was one time when I was changing her bed, and I threw the top sheet over her. And that's what we do when someone dies. You cover their head with the sheet.
Yeah.
And so I pulled it down really quick and said, too soon? And she smiled with it. She thought, I guess, got a kick out of it as well. There was another time where I just finished. It was quite a routine to get her ready for bed at night. So she has to sit on the commode and do her thing, and I clean her up and do a sponge bath, tend to any medical needs, change the bed, and then secure her new diaper. And just as I'm finishing, she starts peeing on me. Now that's cute if you're a new parent with a baby peeing on, those are fun little photos, but not when it's your 90-year-old mother. So I'm like, Mom, why now? I'm just about finished. And she says, it's natural. How can you be angry? She's like, she had no control over any of her body functions at this point. So it's like, you can't be angry. And then her response was just lovely. So I just started all over again.
I believe at this time, when a lot of times you have to rush to the commode and have these chores done, and sponge baths, wiping the butt, and all those things that come into the life very often, and it's a daily chore that happens like 3 times, 4 times per day, maybe more, even more. So I'm not surprised with the word commode in the book, but it's very iconic for someone to write a cup of tea on the commode. And I'm curious on how that title came to be.
Well, I had a different title in mind when I was writing the book. And then as you're writing, and these stories are coming alive again, this was just something that we did. So sometimes Mother Nature, at this point, it was no longer safe or easy for us to get her into the bathroom. So we set a commode bedside. And sometimes Mother Nature took a little longer than was comfortable for either one of us. So her favorite beverage, other than the morning juice, was a cup of hot tea, skim milk and no sugar. So one day, just kind of as a joke, I said, would you like a cup of tea while we're waiting? And she said, sure. So I gave it to her and she loved it.
Oh.
So this became part of our morning ritual. So when she was on the commode, I gave her a cup of tea just to make the whole, time a little more pleasant.
When was the last time when you felt like, that's not the last time, probably for the first time, because I believe because everything was new for you at that point, it must feel very, hard on the beginning. But there must be a moment when you felt like, I can do this. Was there any iconic or, memorable moment that hit that spark within you that made you say, I can do this?
There may have been many of them, but I would have to say that the biggest moment was when I created Day of Beauty. Again, I think with the son taking this on for his mother, I took maybe a little more of a romantic approach. And I know my mom worked full time. She was a proofreader for the largest newspaper in New Jersey, and she had 6 kids, but she treated herself once a week to go to the beauty parlor and to get her a shampoo and set and get her nails done. And that was about it. And whenever she visited me in California, I would take her to my friend's salon in Beverly Hills, and she got the movie star treatment. And I knew she loved that. So again, as we get older, or our parents get older, our grandparents, we forget that wanting to feel pretty doesn't fade with age. And for men, they want to at least feel handsome and look handsome. So I don't know when the last time my mom looked in a mirror or went to a beauty parlor, or I know I took special care with her hair. I grew up with 3 sisters, so I learned how to, they all had long hair. So I learned how to brush and ponytail and sometimes even braid hair. And so this Day of Beauty thing, I thought, well, let's do something a little special. So while she was on the Commode, I would soak her feet in Epsom salts. I would shampoo her hair and rinse it, and then I would get her on the bed and do the sponge bath and a full body massage with lotion, and then let her pick out her new wardrobe, because a new wardrobe was part of this whole thing. And I got her in the wheelchair, and then I blow dried her hair and put it in a ponytail or a braid, and then did her nails. Her nails were like, she was a nail model in her late 20s or late teens, early 20s. So those things were like the crown jewels. So I knew that polishing those were a big thing. So painted her nails and then gave her some red lipstick to match the nails. And I thought, oh, this is just a nice thing. No big deal. But so I wheel her into the kitchen for breakfast on this first Day of Beauty, and we passed a big mirror in the dining room. And I parked her in front of that mirror. And again, I didn't know the last time she even looked in a mirror, or last time she looked in the mirror and felt pretty. But whatever she saw that day, she loved. And she just beamed. And it was just lovely. And I leaned in when I saw her smiling. I said, "Who is that pretty girl?" and it just made her smile even more. So I said, "Oh my gosh, when you turn 90, you still want to feel pretty." And so that was very powerful. And not only it brought her a lot of joy. It certainly showed me that the little gestures that we take for granted can be huge in someone else's life. And then it was infectious, because everybody that saw her, she's now pretty again and feeling pretty. And I always wanted to make her feel pretty. And so that was lovely. So when I did that and I saw the reaction, and certainly the reactions from everybody else, I knew that was the right approach, and I was on the right track, because there's certain things that I wasn't ready for, maybe being a first-time parent, but this kind of stuff I knew I could do.
I want to touch down on the fact that you transitioned from a screenwriter to someone who is a full-time caregiver, and you have written comedies, screenplays, short films, or maybe even long film screenplays as of now. What made you decide to tell this story as a memoir? I mean, was there a feeling that you want to remember this journey or whatever was happening throughout for eternity, or you wanted to preserve it for future generations, or maybe your siblings, children, or was there anything deeper than that?
Well, at first, I always had a thing, and I don't know why, but I always liked recording family history. I started this thing that we did in our family called memory books, where first I did it, I did it for my dad first. I wrote, I didn't know what to give him for his 75th birthday. So I said, I'm going to do something different. And so I said, I'm going to give him 75 memories. And then I thought, oh my gosh, how am I going to come up with 75 memories? Once I started, I had to edit them down because they just flew. I started from my first memory and it was just amazing. And the reaction that I got from him, from that little, again, a little gesture, I didn't think it was that big, was amazing. So then that evolved into full designed memory books for anybody that hit a big, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years kind of thing. And then I started asking other people to send photos and their own memories. So some of these memory books, I did a couple for my aunts when they turned 80, and we had distant cousins and other relatives that I found out, I don't even know these people, but they knew my Aunt Flo and Aunt Claire. And those memories are fabulous. And the ones that I did for my siblings were great because you would have memories, sometimes from two different siblings, a completely different point of view. And some of them were just fantastic. And so I loved doing that. I always wrote poems after we had a family reunion to kind of encapsulate what happened during that week. And then we started the snack food company for my dad. It's certainly a big moment, and everybody got to see their grandpa's snack on the shelves in the United States, which was very cool. Again, I think it was more of preserving for the family. That's why the original note-taking and stuff. But it was when I talked to that one friend and she got some benefit out of what I did. I said, okay, this is bigger than just my family records. This is something I think could help and inspire. And certainly, if not that, at least entertain other people. And then sometimes a great way to learn a lesson is not knowing when you're being taught one. But they go, oh, wait a minute, that's a good tip. I could do that. And again, the responses that I've gotten from people are lovely, and some of them are really deep. There was one. I think she was from my hometown, and she wrote to me on Facebook, "Oh, I bought your book. My mom's 95, and I'm reading it to her, and we're both enjoying it." And then she writes, "My mom just turned 96. I'm rereading your book because I need it. And I learned something before, and I want to make sure it helps me." And then about a month or so later, she said, "I wanted to let you know my mother passed 2 weeks ago. And your book helped me so much because of the humor that you put in there. And I wanted to thank you for that." And that was like, I had no idea. You write this stuff, you put your heart and soul into something, and you don't know if it's going to resonate. And this thing has been resonating with young and old and people around the world. It's really been a lovely gift to me because I think my mom gave me a gift by giving me this opportunity. And luckily I was smart enough to jump on it. And I think she's certainly smiling. And I think anybody who gets some benefit from it is that's again, those are gifts to me, and it's lovely.
Going through this, you certainly had to change the way you looked at your mother, because now she's your child in a way, and you're the parent. But while writing, or maybe after writing, did this thing change anything in you in particular?
Well, yeah, because not having kids or not being married, I really didn't have a grasp of unconditional love, I have to admit. I thought I did with pets. I had a lot of pets that passed and all that kind of stuff. And you thought, oh, you love these guys. But you're at this point. So my mother's life is in my hands. I am totally responsible for that. And through thick and thin, you still got to be there because she said she trusted me, and I not only had to deal with her, but my siblings. And so I wasn't going to let anybody down, no matter how difficult it got. And And there was a point where she almost outlived me. So, yeah, so you do all the things you're supposed to do, except for in my case, I didn't take breaks like the pros say. As a caregiver, you really got to stay in good shape mentally, physically, and emotionally. So you got to take the breaks. And I thought, I'm a guy, I can handle this. And I ended up having some major medical deals. So take the breaks. That's an important thing to do. But unconditional love was a big one. I had to learn patience maybe in a different way, because there's times where you again, like the flicking the light off. There was another incident where I broke something, and you have these little flashes of anger that it's best to keep out of the room, I guess. But I could see where parents, I want to kill that kid. I understand it. I learned that. Again, the sense of humor is very important, and don't take anything personally, because they're still, at this point, I'd say, they're still your parent, they're still your loved one, but they're not as sharp as they used to be. They're a lot slower and more fragile. And you just got to chill and put yourself into those, into their shoes, and understand that things aren't going to be the same as they were. But as I've done with anything, and it may sound corny, I don't know, but I've had a pretty adventurous life, and certainly taken this thing on and moving to France without knowing the language and stuff. I always try to find the joy in any of my adventures, and if you focus on that focuses your mind and your heart on something more positive, and you'll find it. If you seek it, you will find it. The negativity is there if you want to focus on that, but boy, finding the joy just took so much weight off your shoulders to say, okay, what is great about this moment, or I mean, it's kind of selfish, but whatever I did for my mom, for me, it was just the right thing to do. But boy, it made saying goodbye so much easier, because she had a great send-off, and so did my dad. And I was with both of them when they passed, and I said, boy, they passed. They're in their bed, in their bedroom, in their home, with a couple of their kids by their side, and lovely. I mean, very little pain, if any. And it's a way to go. And that certainly helped me with the grieving process. And she it was a lovely way to go, and a little surreal when you're watching the body literally transition when she was finally ready. But it really wasn't a sad goodbye. And so I feel really happy and comfortable, I guess, in what I did, because it helped her leave this world, and it helped me letting her leave this world.
Yeah. I mean, I still want to talk more about the topic, but I'm afraid we are low on time as of now. And I firmly believe that we can take this conversation forward, maybe in future podcast sessions, and hoping that you would be as much delighted to join me in the next upcoming episodes as well. But
sure,
before we close, I just want to ask this question that when your caregiving chapter closed in your life, did it feel like a release or kind of a loss of purpose?
Oh boy, I would say that's a double-edged sword. So yes, there's certainly some relief, but then also regret, because she's gone. In a sense, she's not. With the book and all these lovely interviews I get to do, I keep her in the present, which is lovely. So that's another gift that I get out of this. But yeah, when she left, when we dealt with the funeral and everything, I didn't accept, I guess, or deal with the emotion of her being gone for a while. I had other things to do. And again, I recorded the whole funeral and burial and all this stuff, because I don't think I can do anything with it, but I wanted to record that. And that kept me from getting highly emotional during all that. So that was a little bit of I guess, a buffer for me. But after the reception was done and I'm alone in the house and I'm sitting in her bedroom, that's when I let it go, because she's not in the bed anymore. And yeah, it was. I was glad I was alone because it was pretty embarrassing. Yeah. So then I think part of it, and it has to be, I think, a continuation of the grieving, writing the book and sharing that story. And so that's my way of maybe not letting go and wanting to still be the caregiver.
Apart from the humor that you carry from both of your parents, what other part do you carry with you today?
From my folks? Oh, tons of stuff. One is my dad's favorite prayer was others, and which is about caring for others more than yourself. And if you put someone else, your focus on caring for someone else, it's not only a lovely thing, but it makes you feel good. So that certainly played a role in me taking this. And my mother loved animals. She wanted to be a veterinarian, but in her generation, her father said, "Oh no, that's a man's job," which was a shame because she loved animals and she proved that to us all throughout her life. And I went through a phase where I was allergic to dogs. And so I stayed away from them, even though we grew up with dogs and every kind of furry animal you could have in the house. And my girlfriend here in France had a dog when I first met her. And I went, she's got a dog. I'm allergic to the dog. But the dog was so nice and she was cute. And so I'm now a dog person again. And I'm not allergic to her dog. And then we have taken 2 other rescues. We have 1 American rescue, now 2 French rescues that we've taken, and it's just lovely because now when I walk around, dogs seem to like, yeah, he's a good guy, he's a dog guy now. So that was a lovely lesson to see, because my mom, when we first witnessed this, I didn't witness it because my brother, the one about the mouse, she just cared. We had these little mice that I was very young at the time, but Michael was 6 years older. And he had 2 mice, and one of them looked like it was not going to make it. And my mother stayed up all night nursing that mouse back to health. And my brother witnessed that. And he said, "Oh, man, I mean, this woman just put so much love and energy into caring for that little mouse." And he learned an amazing lesson from that. And when he told me that story, that lesson certainly made a big impact on me. So
what does legacy mean to you after living through the experience?
Well, the book certainly will be, let's say, part of my legacy. But I think that through all her kids, mom and dad, we all carry their legacy with us, because all of them are pretty good people, and we do care for other people, and we do the right thing for the most part. I certainly wasn't an angel my whole life. I don't know if I'm an angel now, but you care. We watched our parents do good things, and they didn't necessarily, let's say, lecture. Oh, this is how you treat someone. We watched them and do it by example. If a waitress didn't charge my dad for a cup of coffee at the end of a meal, he would call her over and say, "You forgot to put this on the bill." And so I grew up watching that, and I've done that several times. And I've had people, even a date one time, she said, "Why did you do that? You got a free coffee." I said, "Because it's not my coffee. That's going to come out of the waitress's paycheck probably." And also, I didn't ask for a free coffee. So it's the right thing to do. And some people can't handle that. And so, hopefully we're carrying their legacy, and hopefully my niece, I still have no children. My nieces and nephews also carry their legacy and stuff, especially with humor. Some of them are just kooky, and it's great because they're going, yeah.
As I mentioned, we are almost at the end of our episode. But before parting our ways, I just want to ask you this final takeaway question. If you have anything to share to our listeners for them to take away from this, conversation, please share it along.
Well, I would say again with my motto, whether it's find the joy. If everybody did this, especially in my country, which is going crazy now for way too many years, if they found the joy instead of the anger in things, boy, the world would be so much better. So I would just say that for me, it's worked. And hopefully I have a pretty good, people see me and it's usually a pretty positive reaction. I hope anyway, because I'm having a ball. I try to have that in anything that I'm doing, even when it gets really stressful. The funny thing in the book, I don't know if you remember, if you got to that chapter, is I love my job. I love my job. I love my job. When I was doing my snack food company, that was just sometimes a nightmare, because it ended up, at least the LA part, being like a one-man show. And I would be up all crazy hours and have to get up really early and then work a 12-hour day. And your hands are blistered, your feet are tired, everything's tired, but I'm the guy that has to make this. There's nobody else who's going to make it at that point. So I had to find the joy, just say, I love my job. I love my job. And hopefully that would go, oh yeah, he loves his job. Why not? Sleep some other day.
And thank you so much, Mark. As I said, I'm really loving this conversation, but I just can't help it that we don't have much time on our hands. I mean, my camera is almost dying there, but thank you so much for again taking out your time, your valuable, precious time, and joining me in this episode. I don't have much of listeners tuning in, but I really appreciate you took out time and considering my podcast.
Well, hopefully I'll start listening, and you have a good show. You're a good host, and hopefully we have a message that will start resonating.
Absolutely.
Let's see. Okay. Thank you. Again, it's a gift for me to share these stories, so I appreciate the time.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you found this episode humorous, intriguing, or made you learn something new. If it did, share it along with a friend who might need to hear this. I'll leave links to Mark's socials along with the book, The Cup of Tea on the Commode, down in the description or show notes for you to go and check it out. I'll catch you in the next one, but until then, take care.